Hey Film Buffs, welcome back to Film Feature 43. I want to do another 43 facts video today, and with Jurassic World Dominion coming out soon, I figured this is the best time to talk about the classic that started it all, and by talking about 43 facts about Jurassic Park, so let's get into it.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
A lot of people know that Jurassic Park is based on a book by Michael Crichton, but what you may not have known is there were a lot of studios and directors who wanted to get their hands on this property before Universal Studios snagged it up. Some of the biggest names were James Cameron and Richard Donner, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, and Columbia Pictures, but I think the funniest name on the list was Tim Burton wanted a crack at it. And to me, that's just hilarious because I feel like Tim Burton has a very particular style that would not fit in well with the aesthetic of Jurassic Park, at least not how we know it today. Universal Studios bought the rights for $2 million before the book even hit shelves, and the reason that Crichton went with Universal Studios over the others is because they kind of had an ace in the hole with a man named Steven Spielberg. Michael Crichton had worked with Spielberg before on a movie underneath Spielberg's production company called Emergency Room, and that movie never seen the light of day, but it was reworked later into a TV show that you may have heard of called ER. On the set of Emergency Room is where Steven Spielberg for the first time heard about Jurassic Park, and that is where the interest started to grow. I think Crichton made the right choice because runner-up was James Cameron, who really wanted to make this movie, but it would have been completely different than what we got. It would have been Arnold Schwarzenegger as Grant, and Bill Paxton as Malcolm, and Charlton Heston as Hammond. It would have been a lot closer to an Aliens movie than the movie that we got, and frankly, probably wouldn't have been very good. I mean, Hammond and Malcolm would have been fine under Heston and Paxton's kind of acting prowess, but Arnold Schwarzenegger as Grant, I can't see that working out very well. With Spielberg on board and the book in hand, the studio needed a cast, it needed inspiration, and it needed, well, dinosaurs. Inspiration would come in the form of another giant destructive monster, that being King Kong. Namely, the King Kong ride at Universal Studios. Steven Spielberg saw the giant animatronic ape and wanted one for his movie. Well, not an ape. He wanted animatronics for his movie, and seeing it in Universal Studios made him think that it was possible to have in Jurassic Park. Animatronics were not the only thing that King Kong gave to Jurassic Park as far as inspiration goes. The giant gate that the characters go through in Jurassic Park was based on the 1933 King Kong film, where there's also likewise a giant gate that the characters have to go through. Animatronics were going to be used for close-up, and stop motion was going to be used for the action scenes and the longer takes. So Industrial Light and Magic was brought on to blur the legs and the lines for when they're doing an action scene. But the animators at Industrial Light and Magic, which happens to be George Lucas's company, decided to make their own 3D model of a walking T-Rex skeleton after being told repeatedly not to and stop wasting their time. But the executives at Universal and Spielberg were so enamored and impressed with the 3D model that they completely scrapped stop motion and went with completely animatronics and CGI. Animators were then given a motion class to jump over hurdles and run like raptors and kind of get a feel for how dinosaurs actually move because, well, you know, none of them have ever seen a dinosaur move before, and the art coordinator wasn't too coordinated in his actions. While jumping over a hurdle, he actually fell, breaking his drawing arm and putting him out of commission for the entire production of Jurassic Park. Despite the setback, the CGI looked so good that the final fight that we get between the T-Rex and the raptors in the Welcome Center was actually added to the end of the film because they wanted to show off how well the CGI looked and kind of brag a little bit about the animators, so that entire scene was added to the end of the movie. As far as the big boy animatronic T-Rex goes, it took 9 artists 16 weeks to completely craft that T-Rex, and it also took 3 tons of clay to make it look realistic. The outside of the T-Rex was made of latex and foam, so whenever it got wet, it soaked in the water, adding literal tons of weight onto the animatronic, causing it to malfunction underneath the weight that was added to it, and it would begin to shake like it was cold. Also, it made the T-Rex look fatter with all that absorbed water, so the CGI people had to go back and make their model T-Rex in computer-generated form even fatter to match how fat the T-Rex looked now. When the cast was acting against CGI dinosaurs, they were acting against literally nothing, kind of like Steve from Blue's Clues. So, in order to make their actions more realistic, Steven Spielberg would run around yelling these dinosaur noises at them to give them something to react to. Speaking of the cast, Spielberg actually got, reportedly, everybody he wanted for the movie, even though some big names also auditioned to be in it, like Jim Carrey for Malcolm. Sam Neill almost didn't take the part because he knew that Spielberg wanted an actor with an American accent, so he started with his English accent, and then they asked him to try to do an American accent, which they liked even less, so he kind of met him somewhere in the middle and did like a mix between the two accents. And Ariana Richards actually auditioned by screaming into a camera and sending that tape to the casting agent, which gave it to Spielberg, who listened to it at night at his home, waking his poor wife up when she heard screaming, and he cast her saying that he's never heard a girl scream like that, which I guess is a good thing. I don't know. B.D. Wong was reportedly a little upset with his role in the movie because he auditioned with a book because the script hadn't been written yet, and in the book his character had a lot bigger role that a lot of it was cut in the final version of the movie. But that's okay because the main attraction and what everybody remembers from this movie, no, not a shirtless Jeff Goldblum,
Dinosaurs?
only got 15 minutes of screen time, 9 of which were Sam Winston's animatronics, and 6 of which were Industrial Light and Magic's CGI, totaling about 11% of the movie's runtime. The cast's first interaction with Sam Winston's animatronics was the Triceratops that was dying in a field, and it was the only interaction they had while they were shooting in Hawaii. The rest of the dinosaurs they dealt with there weren't really there at all. Like I said, a lot of the acting was done against nothing, but luckily for us, Steven Spielberg's sound effects were replaced in post-production with noises of dinosaurs. And by sounds of dinosaurs, I mean other animal sounds mixed together, like the T-Rex was a dog, a penguin, an alligator, a tiger, and an elephant. And the Bronchiosaurus was actually a mixture between a whale and a donkey. Eerily similar to the book, while they were shooting in Hawaii, Hurricane Nikki hit and caused a lot of the crew to fear for their lives. Except for Richard Attenborough, who slept through the entire thing. And when later was asked how he could possibly do that, he said, "My dear boy, I survived the Blitz." So apparently he was pretty tough. I guess Spielberg wasn't too scared either, because he literally took a cameraman out to the beach at the beginning of the hurricane to get real hurricane footage for the movie, but in the end they still had half a movie to shoot and were stuck in Hawaii due to a state of emergency. And as far as this film goes, one of the biggest losses, I think, due to this hurricane was Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to have a scene where he was chased by raptors, but because the set was destroyed by the hurricane, that was cut from the movie. I think that'd be pretty cool to see. In to save today was producer Kathleen Kennedy, who ran into Raiders of the Lost Ark's pilot Fred Sorensen, who happened to be delivering supplies to the island that the cast and crew were on. So Kathleen Kennedy hopped on the plane, went down, delivered the supplies, and picked up the cast and crew to begin filming back in Hollywood. Later on, Sam Neill, Ariana Richards, and Joseph Mazzello did go back to film more scenes in Hawaii, but those were the only cast members that actually returned after they were saved. Cast and crew resumed filming and finally got to work with some real dinosaurs and some real poop.
That is one big pile of shit.
Well, not real poop. It was actually made of mud, clay, and sticks and had no smell to it. So to draw flies to it, they spread honey and papaya all over the poop to make it more appealing to flies. Another practical effect on the movie was the rippling of the water when the T-Rex is walking up to the car. They actually put a guitar under the dashboard and plucked it to cause the rippling effect that we see in the glass. Also, production spent a lot of money on the dinosaurs, and ran over budget, so to save a little bit of money, they just left sets unfinished to give the park a kind of work in progress look and save money in the end by not having to actually finish the sets. Just to prove that dinosaurs are real, Joseph Mazzello, who played Tim, ran into one of the raptors in the kitchen, knocking himself down and hurting himself, all of which took place on his birthday, and when he got back up, Steven Spielberg had the cast and crew sing happy birthday to him, so he kind of considered that his birthday present. And he wasn't the only one on set to get hurt. Sam Neill actually had a piece of sulfur off the flare go in underneath his watch band and burn a chunk of skin out of his wrist. Production wrapped, and all the main cast were given a giant raptor to take home with them. A lot of them still have it today. And Spielberg literally left right after production wrapped, got on a plane and went to Europe to work on Schindler's List. He'd work on Schindler's List during the day while editing Jurassic Park at night, all of which was done over satellite back to the US. Michael Crichton believed only about 10 or 20% of his book was used in the final product, and Universal Studios decided to spend more money on marketing than they did on the entire film themselves. They spent about $63 million on the film and about $65 million on the marketing of the film. All other studios decided to pull their movies from cinemas for the first couple weeks that Jurassic Park was in, because they didn't want to compete with it, which was probably a good call because Jurassic Park beat out E.T. to be the highest grossing film of all time at the time. And not only did the book and movie inspire a record number of people to enter the field of paleontology, but the CGI in the movie through Industrial Light and Magic inspired George Lucas that now is the time, the 1990s, to do my Star Wars prequels that I've wanted to do since the 80s. So thanks for that, I guess. Several sequels were made, and a fourth one was going to be made, but in 2008, Michael Crichton died, so to kind of honor his memory, they decided not to make a fourth film, but money is money, so they decided to make a Jurassic World instead in 2015. And finally, just for fun, according to the internet, it would cost an estimated $23 trillion to open your own Jurassic Park, and that's just to open it. It would actually cost another $11.9 billion a year just to keep it running. So it's a little pricey. But those are my facts on Jurassic Park. It was one of my favorite movies growing up, so it was kind of fun to research it a little bit. Let me know what you guys thought. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.